Hello everyone, it is Irene Lyon and welcome to this video, to this channel, and to this entire world of healing, trauma, nervous system health, and all the things neuroplasticity. Thank you for being here and continuing to watch these videos. If you're new here, welcome to this world of mine. I'm Irene Lyon and I wanted to dive into an older concept today, but for some of you it might be brand new and I want to dive into a little bit. And that is the concept of why we as humans right now need education around our physiology and our nervous system that is not dumbed down. So in other words, why we need non-dumbed down nervous system, neurophysiology information. And true story, this was years ago. I was in San Diego at a conference. It was a business conference, not a trauma neuroplasticity conference or anything like that. But I managed to strike up a conversation with somebody at a table around the vagus nerve and around just what that all is. And of course, think about this. This was over 8 years ago. So this was not a common thing that people were talking about yet. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. And he goes, yeah, we work to help people calm their or get into parasympathetic mode through the vagus nerve. And I'm like, that's great. And I said, do you dive into the different branches of the parasympathetic? And I was sort of testing because I wanted to see if this person actually understood what the parasympathetic nervous system was or is, and what the vagus nerve is and how it works in relationship to the sympathetic nervous system and all the branches and sub-branches and different tones of the parasympathetic nervous system. And I think I might have stumped the person because he quickly kind of backpedaled and said, oh, no, we don't teach our clients anything about the science, anything about all those branches. We just give them the tools and all they care about are results. Now, at least he was honest. I then realized probably don't want to sit with this person because I could feel the defensiveness. So I just excused myself and sat somewhere else and met a lovely individual who I can't remember their name, but it was a wonderful weekend hanging out with that person. Anyways, the reason I wanted to bring this up today is I think there's nothing wrong with people seeking out solutions and strategies and techniques and things that give a quick solution where you don't even know why it worked. You're just so glad it worked. I, on the other hand, have a different interest in my work with you, with my students, with my clients, with my peers, with those that I may train in the future. I want to make sure everyone understands as much detail as possible so that they have the upper hand of understanding what is going on in their system. And the reason why I believe we need to have the higher level education on board is because we are not living the way in which our biology, our neurophysiology was designed. We have complexity around us. We're dealing with this tech world that is quite new. We're dealing with the industrial world, which is quite new, and even the agricultural world, which is quite new, and the domestication of plants and animals, which, while seems a long ways ago in the past, that is not how we were designed as human beings, human animals that are human beings. I've gotten into trouble in the past for calling us animals, but we have to understand we as human beings, whatever you want to classify us as, we have got animal physiology, right? We have the same nervous system, science, biology in our system as our cats and dogs and lions and tigers. We've got that in us. And we then have this higher brain that is quite complex and does differentiate us from these other species. We also have, if we go further to that, the concept of a soul. And of course, that's sort of going outside of my suite of work, but I have talked about soul work. I have talked about past life trauma in the past. I'll link some of those videos below here in the show more. But there's so much complexity to the human system that we need to, from what I've seen, understand the complexity, so that when something is occurring that doesn't line up with that practice that we were given, we know that we're not crazy, or that we're not doing it wrong, or that we're not failing. So I'll give an example. So when we understand these deeper branches of, say, the parasympathetic nervous system, and I'm not going to go into all of them because I have many other videos that talk about the polyvagal branches and all those things. So I'll link up a long form lecture and another one of my vlogs where you can go and watch that after this. But let's just say we get into a state of stress and we feel absolute terror in our system. And let's just say, as we sense that terror, we feel a constriction in our belly, a tightness in our belly, a flushness in our face. And immediately we try to get rid of that feeling, right? We try to cover up the blushing on our face, all of the things that might be indicative of a high level stress reaction. And let's just say we're somewhere where we're a little vulnerable and alone. Let's just say we're on an airplane and we feel something spark us, and maybe it's the turbulence on the plane, and we're all of a sudden feeling ourselves go into what we might consider to be a panic attack or an anxiety attack. And I'm using this example because this has actually happened to me in the past. It happens very rarely. It happened for a period of a few years when I was working through some old survival stress. To this day, I do not know what it is exactly from. But because of my knowledge of how the autonomic nervous system works and how our parasympathetic nervous system, which is geared to help slow us down, works, I was able to say to myself, okay, yes, there's turbulence, and of course, weird things can happen when that occurs. I get that. But let's just say, airline travel is really the safest travel that exists. The chances of this plane going down are pretty slim. I have to find a way to instigate, to bring in more calming that will take me out of this panicky, anxiety, survival, fight, flight mode, so that I can enjoy this flight and not be just in this insane panic for the rest of the flight, or pass out. Because if the spiking of the adrenaline keeps happening and I don't come down, my system could go into a shutdown response where I literally pass out, faint, due to the overwhelming intensity of the fight flight. Because I was able to, in those moments, reason with myself. So I'm feeling on one hand the physiology that's sparking up something. I'm feeling the physiology because I know, due to this education that I have, this doesn't match up with what's going on here. I've never had trouble flying. I've never been in a plane crash. Something's up. I was able to instill some of the common things that we teach. So one of them might be orienting. So orienting is a skill and is a natural reflexive practice that we humans have. We have a defensive orienting response that comes up when there's a real threat. And so we will be alert to something that might be coming at us, or we hear a loud, bang or something like that. We defensively orient. That wasn't the case in this situation. Everything was calm. The people were fine. So what I then do in that moment is I want to bring on something called exploratory orienting, which actually helps to soothe the nervous system down. It brings on something called the ventral vagal of the parasympathetic, which helps to go directly to the heart's pacemaker, to bring it down. So in that moment, I started to orient. I started to see things. I started to, in my mind, name what I was seeing. So that's one reason why having this understanding of how the nervous system works and the elements that might shift into more calm and more relaxed and not panic and alert will be helpful. If I were to have stood there and all of a sudden felt myself defensively orienting, if I don't know what that means, I might do more of it and get more paranoid and look at all the people And you even see that in those movies where someone is in panic and then the camera does a weird thing, and it even makes you, the viewer, feel a little dizzy, at least I do. If we're not aware of these distinctions of the parasympathetic, for example, we may not know, okay, don't get jerky with my vision, don't start looking in panic, but actually look slowly, look softly. Look for things that look pleasant. There's a color that I like. There's a nice smile on the person who's helping us in the plane. Nod to someone. So this is another thing, social engagement. So social engagement is part of our parasympathetic nervous system. And when we are feeling strained and stressed, typically when we connect with someone in a way that's just easy, small talk, even just a smile, even just a nod, that sends a signal to our system that this is safer, this isn't danger, right? And that's where, in some ways, the beauty of the flying situation, there are people hired working on that plane, right? The airline attendants who are there to help, right? I've never had to do this, but my hunch is if we were to go up to an airline attendant and say, I'm feeling a little panicked. I don't really like flying. Just wanted to tell you that. Most of them, my sense, will reassure, will ask, can I get you something? Let me help you. Thank you for letting me know. And just that engagement, that little bit of social connection gives us an ally on the plane. So again, though, if someone doesn't understand the branches, in this example, I'm giving you the parasympathetic and the different branches and the different tones, which I go over again in other videos. But for example, if we don't understand this neurophysiology, if we don't understand it, we wouldn't think to actively socially engage. Another example, and I know this is where it might not work so well, but even just nodding and smiling to the person that you sit next to. Of course, they might ignore you, and that's a risk you got to take. Even looking at children and smiling and nodding at them can be something that can help. Now, of course, this is an example on a plane. You could imagine this in a grocery store, on the street, in your home. It might even be calling someone. Something that engages the orienting response in an exploratory way. And so by understanding, again, our physiology, we can actively go into behaviors that directly, it's not even indirectly, that directly influence our autonomic nervous system and help it to calm down. If we don't understand these things, we might do something that, while in the past has helped us, isn't actually attuning to what the system needs. So this is one way, or one reason I should say, that understanding the non-dumbed down elements of what goes on at our autonomic nervous system level, it's important. And I see and know from my students that they take this knowledge and they mix it with their human physiology. So they track the physiology, but then, of course, as they learn this information, they are pulling from their memory banks the cognitive theory that they've learned to then apply to their biology to bring their stress level down. I'll give you one more example. Let's just say I use this example all the time with my students. You're walking in your home and you stub your toe on a coffee table, right? And you really hurt your toe. And there can be this conditioning, this overriding that humans have to just, not a big deal. I didn't break it, or at least I don't think I broke it. I'm just going to keep walking around. I'm going to keep cleaning, or I'm going to keep doing the dishes, or whatever it is that you might be doing in your home. You ignore the hurt. The thing to understand is, even if you haven't broken skin or you've not broken a bone, but you've hit it enough that maybe a bruise comes out, there is a stress response that gets signaled out into your body. You feel the pain. Now, by ignoring that and just going on, sucking it up, you're not listening and you're not allowing the physiology to respond in suit. You're not allowing it to bring the stress response down. So by understanding, again, the theory of how the stress response works, there's a stress that comes in, we go into fight, flight, we hit kind of like a thermostatic threshold, and then when we are with it, we feel it, there's no more danger, I'm not constantly hitting my foot on the table, it comes down. But if we push, if we keep going, we will get stuck on that threshold. We'll get stuck in fight, flight. We might even numb out the feeling, but while numbing out one area, we numb out parts of everything. And then just say hypothetically, we then get into our car, we go do something. We don't realize we've elevated our stress levels. We haven't brought them down, and we are less than alert and aware of our surroundings. The thing I mentioned a second ago with the plane example, orienting response, I'm going to bring that into here, so bear with me as I make a connection. If we're stuck in our stress response because we stubbed our toe on the table, we haven't properly come down, and we're revving at a little bit of a high zone, and then we get into our car, not only will we be less aware of our physiology and our body, that will also make us less intuitive in nature to what is around us. We actually won't be able to defensively orient as much to maybe the car that's coming at us that just ran the red light, or the kid on the bike that just fell onto the street. We will be stuck in our own stress response. Therefore, we will not be aware of other dangers around us. So our defensive orienting response will be less sharp because we're already in a heightened defense response, but we've also shut it down a little bit. I hope I'm making sense there. And then, of course, the other thing that can occur when we, let's say again, stub the toe, get in our car, let's say we're fine, but then say we pick up our kids from school and we're in this stress response, we may not be aware when they come in that something's not right because we're stuck in our own stress chemistry. So their body, their system, we won't attune to it properly, and then we might miss something that's important that we need to attend to as a caregiver, for example. So back to the stubbing of the toe on the coffee table. Let's just say that happens. In that moment, use this understanding of the need for the system to come down as a moment to pause, as a moment of awareness, as a moment of, we could even call it body meditation, mindfulness, but it's more than the mind because we're actually feeling the sting, we're feeling the hurt. We might feel the anger that we just, bumped into that table. We might feel tears come up for whatever reason, and not to judge, not to question, but to just let that emotionality, let that felt sense come through. It will take us out of that stress response and it'll bring us back to more of a baseline. In that moment, we are then able to go on with our life and have a little bit more capacity to then be attuned to, of course, the world around us, but also our internal sense. Now, I've been going for 18 minutes on this video. I could keep giving examples of what would happen if this, what would happen if that. And the thing is that when we understand how this neurophysiology works internally and also in relationship to the environment, and how we have this cascade of nervous system, autonomic nervous system response. Again, this is that polyvagal concept, which isn't just about the vagus nerve. It's about the entire cascade of reaction to stress, but also the cascade of reaction to safety. It goes both ways. But when we understand it, we can actually become really interested in these little things like having a panic attack on the plane, stubbing our toe on a coffee table, or whatever else might occur in our day-to-day life that throws us off a little bit. Now, someone might be saying, yeah, but Irene, what about all the other trauma that I have that I know that I've got stored that you always are talking about? Yes, we also need to work with that, but here's a little secret. If you've worked with me in my programs, especially Smart Body, Smart Mind, you know that we do not conjure up old traumas, write a list, and work on them piece by piece. We don't do that. What we do is we teach you even more robust ways to be with these simple pieces, to be with the toe that gets stubbed, to be with that panic that we feel, to stay connected to the environment, to learn how to orient with exploration and curiosity, to break that cycle of defensive orienting, for example, right? So if you know that you have stored up stuff from the past, which, let's face it, pretty much all of us do, no shame in that. It's just the way humanity is right now. By doing these elements in the here and now as they come up, we're building capacity in the system so that we can work on the old stuff. And so when that old stuff does come up, we're really good at it. We've got the theory on board. We have the basic practices on board of learning and knowing how to orient. And of course, I haven't gotten into all of them because there are many other ways. And I'll post again some stuff below in the show more section so that you can try some of my audio samplers. You can dive into some of my programs to learn more practical. But things like just staying connected to the moment seems simple, but when we can stay connected to the here and now, connect to the environment, and track our physiology and understand this education from a non-dumbed down point of view, there's a lot to work with. So to wrap this back to the original kind of concept of this video, which was why it is so important when we are healing at this nervous system level and restoring nervous system health, we must have, at least in my opinion and in my experience, the non-dumbed down version of what is happening inside at this neurophysiology, biological, chemical, threat response, environmental, social engagement, vagus nerve, parasympathetic, autonomic nervous system, all those things level. When we start to get that on board, we actually start to do the work without even realizing it. And I think that's what's most cool about getting this on board, is because it's actually accurate, the way that the system works in that simple stress response and how we can cultivate a better relationship to those reactions, to those spikes in stress chemistry, to how we feel our somatic self, to how we connect with the environment. That's old science. We kind of know that that is just there. And so by working on it, we start to build capacity, and that really is being an apprentice of our nervous system. So thank you for being here. Thanks for listening to me chat with these two different examples. As I often say, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. Turn on notifications so that you get notified when these videos come out. Below this video, if you're watching this on YouTube, will be a whole bunch of resources that you can move through on the polyvagal theory, on what the nervous system is, on what orienting is, and I'll also attach a few of my audio samplers that you can download so that you can start to practice some of the body basics around being with and really living with this somatic nervous system that we all have. All right, thank you so much for listening and being here. We will see you next time. It's Irene. Quick note before you go. I want to make sure you know about my upcoming enrollment to my 12-week online curriculum called Smart Body, Smart Mind. I will say that one more time. Smart Body, Smart Mind. This is my online nervous system rewire and regulation program that my team and I have been running for many years. This will be the 13th time we have run this powerful online curriculum with people all around the world. So I want to make sure you know about the upcoming registration that will be mid-February for a short period of time, and we will start the live session end of February 2023. It's a 3-month curriculum and it is life-changing. So if you would like to do the work with me, and this is exactly where we do the work, deeper theory, practices, teaching with me live, Q&A sessions with my expert colleagues, this is what you want to do. I want you to learn about it now so you have plenty of time to ask questions and make a non-survival based decision on joining this year. Somewhere near this video will be a link to that information page. Be sure to check that out and ask questions. If you have any questions, you can post one below this video or send us an email, support@irenelyon.com.